All right, let's dive into this deep dive today. We're tackling something pretty wild. The idea that words are like almost magic spells shaping the world around us.
Oh, I like that. Magic spells. Interesting.
Yeah, right. You guys sent in this YouTube video. It's called How Your Words Control Your Reality. And it goes deep. Linguistics, pop culture, even a little bit of quantum physics gets thrown in there.
I mean, it's a fascinating idea. And, it's got roots in so many different places, like philosophers, spiritual traditions, even ancient cultures. They all kind of recognize that there's something inherently powerful about language.
Totally. And this video just jumps right in, saying that, like, the words we hear, especially as kids, they literally program our minds, mold our beliefs, almost like our brains are getting coded by language.
Yeah, that's a really good visual, actually. And it ties in really well with the whole idea of neuroplasticity, which, basically just means our brains are always rewiring themselves based on what we experience. Right?
Yeah, you're right.
And language, that's a huge part of those experiences.
It's like what they were saying about, remember that experiment they talked about, where they showed people a video of a car crash?
Oh, yeah.
And then they asked them these slightly different questions about what they saw. But like, changing just one word in the question actually messed with what people remembered.
Yeah, and it was such a tiny change, too. Like, asking about a broken headlight versus the broken headlight.
Right.
Crazy.
And that actually made a difference.
It did, yeah. So, like, people who heard the broken headlight were more likely to remember seeing one, even if it wasn't even there in the video.
Wow, that is kind of creepy when you think about it. Like, how much of what we think we know is really from actual experience versus just like the language that was used to describe it to us?
That is a great question. It really brings up the need for critical thinking, a little bit of healthy skepticism, especially when we're taking in information, I think.
Definitely. And then they get into this whole thing about like the hidden meanings behind words we use every day. It's wild how much depth there is to like ordinary language. I never thought about it before, but the word mortgage, it comes from a Latin term.
Oh, really?
And it basically translates to death pledge.
Death pledge. Wow.
Kind of ominous, right?
Yeah, it really puts a whole new spin on, like, signing those papers at the bank, doesn't it?
For sure.
It's amazing, though, how the etymology of words, like where they came from, can reveal all these layers of meaning. We may not even be aware of them, but they're there.
Right, it's like under the surface.
Like, take the word alcohol, for example.
Okay.
So it has roots in this Arabic word that means spirit, which, I mean, think about that. It adds this whole other dimension to how we think about alcohol.
Right, and then they had that whole thing about government, like how you can break it down as govern the mind.
Govern the mind, yeah.
Like all these little subconscious messages are buried in the language we're using all the time.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of historical context there, that's for sure. But, it's also important to remember that language, it changes over time.
It evolves.
Exactly, it evolves. So, like, what a word means to us today, it's not just about those old roots. It's also about all the cultural stuff, the social associations that have developed over time.
So it's not just the dictionary definition, it's the feeling it gives you.
Right. The vibe, the connotation, yeah. Even if we're not consciously thinking about it.
Yeah, the subconscious stuff. And they actually bring up some behavioral economics stuff,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting. Like, studies have shown that if you use language that really focuses on ownership, like saying my money instead of just money,
Okay.
it can make people act more conservatively with their finances.
Interesting. So the words we use when we talk about money actually affect our spending habits.
It seems like it.
It just goes to show how deeply language is woven into, like, our psychology, right?
Yeah.
How we frame things with words, it can really impact our emotions, how we see things, and ultimately how we behave.
Right. But then this is where the video goes like full woo-woo and starts talking about how words might even affect reality on a quantum level.
Yeah, that's where things get really theoretical. They're
Yeah.
trying to connect language to, like, some of those mind-bending ideas from quantum physics.
Okay, gotta be honest. I need some help here. Quantum physics is super cool, but it's hard to wrap my head around sometimes. Can you give us the crash course?
Sure, yeah. So basically, quantum physics, it's all about how matter behaves at the tiniest level, like subatomic particles. And it comes up with some really wild stuff that, it really challenges how we normally think about reality working.
Right, it's like a whole different set of rules down there.
Exactly. And one of the big ideas is this thing called superposition,
Okay.
which basically means that a particle, it can exist in multiple states at the same time until someone observes it and then kind of chooses one.
So it's like, until someone looks at it, it's blurry.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, kind of. It's like, if you flip a coin but it's spinning in the air, it's both heads and tails at the same time.
Right.
Until it lands and you actually see the result.
I get it. So how does language fit into all of this?
Well, the video's argument is that our words, our thoughts, even just our intentions, they're all forms of observation.
Oh, interesting.
So just like observing that particle makes it settle into one reality, our words could be doing something similar. They're messing with the quantum field around us, kind of nudging those possibilities into actual experiences.
Wait, so it's like we're, casting spells with our words all the time? Like we're picking which reality we want?
It's a bold statement for sure, and I mean, no one's 100% proven this scientifically yet, but it definitely raises some fascinating questions about like consciousness, the power of our intentions, and how everything in the universe is connected,
It's definitely food for thought. But even if we're not like literally bending reality with our words, the video makes a really good point that language has a huge impact on how we experience everything. The world, ourselves, everything.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. The video goes on to talk about another dimension of this whole power of language thing, the media, and how it shapes what we all believe.
Oh yeah, that was a really eye-opening part. Like how the media uses language so strategically, almost like they're trying to cast a spell on public opinion.
Exactly.
It's kind of wild to think about, right? Like we could actually be under a media spell
Yeah.
and not even know it. But before we got into all that, remember we were talking about how we can take back control of this language power for ourselves, like learn to cast our own good spells.
Right. And the video gets into some techniques for doing that. One of the big ones they talked about was affirmation.
Affirmations, yeah.
Like choosing specific phrases that kind of, affirm the positive stuff you want, or like the outcomes you're hoping for.
Right. It's like saying what you want to be true over and over.
Exactly. But, the video stressed that it's not just about wishful thinking, You really got to believe in what you're saying for it to actually work.
So it's got to be genuine, not just parroting words.
Right. Your subconscious mind, it's powerful, but it's not stupid. If it senses that you don't really buy into the affirmation, it's just going to be like, yeah, right, whatever.
So maybe it's better to start with smaller affirmations, things that feel more believable at first.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Instead of jumping straight to like, I am a millionaire, maybe you start with something like, I am open to new opportunities for financial abundance.
That feels a lot less intimidating, for sure. And then they talked about just being mindful of the language we use in our everyday conversations, too.
Oh, absolutely. Like how we talk about our experiences, how we interact with people, even tiny changes in the words we choose can make a big difference in how we feel about things.
Like instead of saying, I have to go to work, you could say, I get to go to work.
Exactly. It's the same situation, right?
Right.
But just framing it in a more positive way can totally shift your perspective.
That's so true. This reminds me of something my therapist said once. She was like, change your language, change your life. At the time, I thought it sounded kind of corny, but now.
Makes sense, though.
Yeah, now I get it.
It really highlights how connected language is to our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, everything.
Right. It's all tied together. Oh, and then they briefly mentioned the power of silence, too. Which, sounds kind of funny when we're talking about the power of words, right?
Yeah, silence can be easy to overlook.
Yeah.
But it can be just as important as speaking. It gives you that space to reflect, to really listen to that inner voice. And then when you do speak, your words are going to be more meaningful.
It's like the space between the notes in music. That's what gives it rhythm, lets the sounds really sink in.
That's such a good analogy. Silence is like that. It helps us quiet all the mental noise and really connect with what matters.
Okay, so it's not just about talking more. It's about using language in a way that's intentional.
Yeah.
Whether it's speaking, writing, even just thinking to ourselves.
Exactly. Becoming aware of that constant chatter in our minds, and then making choices about which words we let stick around and shape our experience.
So we've got affirmations, mindful communication, the power of silence. What other practical stuff did the video give us to work with?
Well, they also got into visualization, which is basically like using mental pictures along with your positive affirmations to create new pathways in your brain. It helps you really solidify the beliefs you want.
So it's not just changing the words we use, it's changing the whole picture in our minds.
Yeah.
How we see ourselves, how we see the world.
Yeah, and visualization is a really powerful tool for that. When you create these vivid images of yourself achieving your goals or embodying the qualities you want to develop, it sends a powerful message to your subconscious, like you're programming it for success.
It's like we're making our own little movie montage, setting the scene for how we want our lives to go.
Love that. And they really emphasized engaging all your senses when you do this. The more detailed and vivid you can make the visualization, the more impact it's going to have.
So instead of just saying, I am confident, you might picture yourself standing up straight, speaking clearly, really feeling that confidence in your body.
Exactly. Bringing all those senses into it makes it so much more real to your subconscious. And that makes it way more likely that it's actually going to show up in your life.
This is really cool stuff. I'm like ready to go back and rewatch the video, start trying some of these techniques out.
You should. It's really packed with useful stuff.
All right, so we've covered a lot here. Affirmations, visualization, the media's influence, even the possibility that language could be shaping reality on a quantum level. What are some of the big things you hope listeners will take away from this deep dive?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that language, it's not just this passive tool for talking to each other. It's an active force that shapes how we think, how we feel, what we experience.
It's not just words, it's energy, it's intention, it's power.
Exactly. And with that power, we've got to be responsible. We have to be mindful about the language we use, both when we talk to others and when we're talking to ourselves. We have to recognize the impact it has.
We can use it to lift people up, inspire them, empower them, or we can use it to tear them down, limit them, bring negativity into their lives.
The choice is ours. And it's a choice we're making every single day with every word we speak, write, and think.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to just take a second, kind of reflect on everything we've talked about, see if anything else pops up for either of us. Any final thoughts or questions?
You know what's really sticking with me? The idea that we could actually use language to transform things, not just individually, but collectively. If our own words can shape our personal realities, what if we all started consciously using language to create something better together?
Whoa, that's a big thought. Like if we could align our words, our intentions, tell a new story as a whole society, could we actually create a more positive future?
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful idea to end on, right? Like we could actually use language to shape a better future together. It's like almost a blueprint for positive change.
It really is inspiring, and it's something that we could all, explore further. If our words have the power to change our own WN lives, imagine what could happen if we all started using language more consciously as a group to create more understanding, more compassion, more unity. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of language, any last thoughts for our listeners? How can they actually start putting these ideas into action? Like what are some real steps they can take to start casting those good spells and making positive change happen?
Well, I think the most important thing is just to approach language with awareness. Be intentional about it. Pay attention to the words you're using, both when you're talking to other people and when you're just talking to yourself in your head. And just notice. Notice how those words make you feel, how they affect the people around you.
So it's like we become scientists of language in a way.
Yes, exactly. Like observing the effects of our words in real time.
Right. And then once we're more tuned in to how powerful language is, we can start making choices, choosing the words we want to bring into our lives, into the world.
Absolutely. So instead of letting language just happen to us, we become the creators.
Yeah.
We create our own linguistic reality, choosing words that match our values, our goals, everything we want to achieve.
And it's not just about, like, these big dramatic statements either.
Right. It's the little stuff, too. Even the tiniest shifts can have a ripple effect. Like when you greet someone, really mean it. A genuine smile, a heartfelt good morning, it can change the whole energy of that interaction.
It's like we're all gardeners of language, tending to the seeds of our words and thoughts. We can nurture the ones that bring beauty and growth, and weed out the ones that create negativity.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. And just like a garden needs constant care and attention, so does our language. So make an effort. Choose words that lift you up, that inspire you, that empower you, and indeed the people around you.
This has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the power of language and the responsibility that comes with it.
That's wonderful to hear. I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you some tools to explore the magic of language in your own life.
It definitely has. And I know our listeners are going to walk away with some big aha moments too. And a renewed sense of wonder about the world of words.
I hope so. But remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, keep playing with language. You never know what you might discover.
Until next time, Word Explorers, go out there and cast some good spells.